you've got to try and think there's competition out there and I need to be in the yes pile, so it's got to be pretty damn good. And the
Yeah,
last one is that you've got to demonstrate that they have confidence in you to deliver the project on time, on budget, to scope, all that sort of thing.
hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Food Waste Matters. My name's Jayne Gallagher, and I'm the host for you this week. And this week, we're taking a little bit of a different tact, and I'll tell you why. In our work, we talk to a lot of businesses and organisations who are trying to tackle the immense problem of food waste, whether that's to reduce food waste or to transform it into new products. And in those discussions, we often end up talking about, well, where can I get help? Where can I get help to implement these ideas that I have? And whether it's to start doing that new idea that you have, or whether it's an idea that's working and you want to scale it, quite often you look to see whether there's some grants available to help you do it. And that's the topic of this week's episode: how to get into the yes pile. And so this week we're talking to Prue Saxby, and she is essentially a grant master. She's helped so many businesses get so much money to deal with their day-to-day problems and to help them overcome those problems. In this episode, she's going to share with you the most common mistakes that she's seen and how to solve them, how to overcome those mistakes and increase the chances of getting into the yes pile. And if you stay to the end, she makes an incredible offer to our listeners, and she can help you maybe just make a few tweaks to what you're doing and get you into the yes pile. So without any further ado, let's welcome Prue Saxby to the podcast. Hello, Prue. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jayne. Great to be here.
Well, as I mentioned to you when we were talking before the show, when in our work that we do with small fishers, farmers, small food businesses, a lot of the comment we get is, look, we've got these great ideas about how we can reduce and manage our food waste, but we have a bit of trouble getting access to funds, to finding the right grants, and then when we find the grants, we spend a bit of time preparing all the documents and doing what we think are all the right things, and then we're not successful. So it gets a bit disappointing. It's a bit disappointing, and we feel, oh, it's not worth it. So then we give up, and then all our great ideas we don't get to implement. So when we were hearing that, I thought, well, I know Prue Saxby, she's a grant master. And I thought, let's get her on the show, and you can tell our listeners about how to get in that yes pile, which I know is one of your sayings. So Prue, perhaps you could start by telling everybody a little bit more. I've introduced you, but a little bit more about who you are, what you've done, how you got into the business of grant writing, how you became a grant master.
Sure, Jayne. Well, I've been developing my craft, so I call it a craft, for over 15 years now. And it sort of became a bit of a seed in my mind when I was working for state government. And so I worked for state development at the time. So just, liaising with people, working with businesses. I really loved working with the businesses and helping them flourish in a way. And so, as everyone knows, a bit with government, you can only do what is coming down from the minister and the senior staff. And that was a bit of a mismatch for me in a way. And the ways that I saw they needed help was not really the right direction for me. So I started Indigo Gold, which is the overarching company. And then just by working with clients and seeing what they needed, it just kept being apparent that grants were the thing. And it's also, I'm good at writing, always have been. And I decided to start the Grant Writing Academy 3 years ago to really start to niche. And so it's really been like, it's my passion. I love it. You can probably see a smile on my face. I just love talking about it. So I started the Grant Writing Academy to really hone in on that need. And whether it's people who want to, join and do things for themselves, or clients who just need to come in for a while, use my services and get their grant, I sort of help with everybody. So it's grown from there. I have that passion, and as you said, to get people's grants in the yes pile. And I've been very successful with this. So help businesses. I think in the intro I gave you, it's probably a little bit out of date, so I'm sorry for that. It's probably more like 62 million now. It goes up, every month. And they're the ones that I've literally written. Then there's all the grants where people have done it for themselves and I'm just doing a bit of mentoring. So it's probably closer to 80, 90 million. But I work with a variety of industries, and a lot of them have been food over the years. So I have a fair bit of knowledge about that.
That's fantastic. Wow, I didn't know that it'd been that much. And they're not all large grants, are they? A lot of them are small grants, community-based, individual business-based, aren't they?
Yeah, a lot of businesses or organisations, some have been larger committees that have quite substantial infrastructure and then need more, like the Qantas Founders Air Park roof was one of those, and it was like a $12 million project, and received a lot of large ones for food-related businesses, so agri, those sorts of things, ignite ideas, that sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
then there's also, there's Coles Nurture Fund. There's all those sorts of grants as well. Lots of opportunity. You just have to be organised and ready.
Yes, yes, and I know that's one of your mantras. We've worked together for a little while now, and you've often told me that there are some things that people can do to increase their chances of getting into the yes pile, and so I thought maybe you could tell our listeners a little bit about some of the mistakes or some of the things that people just need to tweak sometimes. To get from the no pile to the yes pile, and I think that's maybe you could just expand on that. What are some of the more common mistakes, and how can people fix them?
Well, the first one I'd just like to mention is that some people will come into grants thinking nearly it's, oh, we see people get grants, so they're my right. Well, you have to have this mindset that they're like an extra. So you have your plan, you're heading to your plan and what you want to do with the business. And if a grant opportunity comes along that fits into that, you might have to adapt things a little. That's the way you should approach it. There are times, especially with COVID, that where things are a little different and there can be opportunities to really jump onto. But generally, what I see is that most of the successful ones have been the vision of the business person or the team, and then money through funding is available, and it can be tenders as well as grants. I just like people to think, okay, it might not just be a grant, it could be a tender opportunity where we're delivering, I don't know, the little biscuit that's in the package for Qantas or Virgin or whatever, so there's all these opportunities you can think of as well, and that would be more of a tender. But with whatever it is, it's about having a plan in place and then not sort of seeing something and then there's a bright shiny object, think, oh, I'm going to go and start a completely different project because there's money out there. And I think people get a bit of, just preoccupied with worrying about what they're missing out on. So that's really just the first thing. It's about some planning. Have it in, like I call it, a grant want list. Have your 3 or 5 major projects that you'd like to get funding for, and they can range from infrastructure or machinery down to even, I don't know, if you have volunteers helping in your business, coming out and just, if you're on the sea and they're wanting to come out for a bit of experience, they can even you could get volunteer grants for things like that. But most of them are going to be more project based, and you start to develop what you want to do. It's in your strategic plan so that when you're writing the grant, all that history is sort of already there. You can demonstrate that you've been thinking about this. It's been in your development and what you've been thinking about. You might have done some research and development about it, and it's for new equipment that will help you do that from overseas. So there's this sort of history there. So that's really about the planning. Then sort of the second one is about preparing what you're going to need. So what you might need entity chart, organization chart, how, if there's different parts of your business, how they're related, because you have to decide who to apply under. And sometimes I see a client, they've put in their expression of interest, then they come to me when it's time for stage 2, and then when I start to ask some questions, they realize they should have probably put their application in under another entity. Right. So even little things like the entity can make a big difference. If it's, if you've got a business that's got a trust, or it's a little convoluted and your people are paid out of a different entity, you have to think about all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's about having some of those documents ready to start with.
And I guess you've also got to have like your financials and be prepared to share them and things like that. So having them ready can save a lot of time. Fantastic. Yeah. And is there another one? So we've covered planning, and we've covered being ready with the documents and with the thing. What's the third one?
Then my next tip would be to do a bit of research. For me, research even means if you see a grant and you're not quite ready, don't just disregard it. Think, okay, I'll do some prep for the next time it comes around, or next year, or whatever. So don't think of them, I missed that one, and get really frustrated about it. It's just like, let me go in. You can spend just 5-10 minutes going into that grant opportunity, having a read about the sorts of documents you'll need, what the documents are you'll need to fill in. You could even register and have a quick look at the application if you want to, so you've got some idea of what they're going to be after, but also doing research on, some sort of statistics, how much throughput have you got at the moment, all the numbers of people, understanding the segments of your people if that's relevant, any research about your industry, how much the government's wanting to export maybe, or to stop imports, those sorts of things, a bit of research, especially for business. So having some research, understanding the grant opportunity and what will be required. And I can talk about, of course, I have a free grant list where that makes it easy to just go in there and click on some links and do that. So that'd be number 3.
You just kind of mentioned a free grant list there. And that to me sounds like something that our listeners would be really interested in, because I know that sometimes, as you say, you've got the business plan, you know what you want to do, and you just don't know what grants are out there. So that sounds like a fantastic resource. So we'll pop that link in, and you can maybe talk to the listeners a little bit more about that later on. Because I interrupted you. You were in a flow. You had another one. This is great. This is so good. Indigo Gold.
The next one is, when you see an opportunity, what I want people to do is check out the eligibility first, because there's the different grants. There's the eligibility as in the type of entity you are, and then also eligibility really being more, is your project fitting with this particular opportunity? So some people do the whole, square peg in the round hole, and they're trying to make their thing fit and it doesn't, and that's when they get a bit frustrated. So this is where a lot of the planning ahead comes, to the fore. If you understand your project, how much it's going to cost, then when you see the opportunity, you're having a look whether it's the amount of money that you need, or do you have the matching funding? So there's all sorts of pieces that come into play. Sometimes you can get quite a lot of the amount. Say you were after $250,000. There could be an opportunity where it's up to, I don't know, 750,000, $1 million. So your 250,000 is easily going to fit. And if you were putting in some matching funding, it's a $500,000 project in total. It just depends what's allowable. And then when you are seeing something, you also want to sort of scroll through those guidelines. So your guidelines are your best friend. I read them all the time. Like, I scan through them. I know what to look for. So you're looking for the project items. I go to the ones that aren't eligible. So I'm sort of checking through to see, are wages eligible? Is travel eligible if you need to travel for your project? All those sorts of things. So you can have a look at those. And also, do you have the time? Because I hate hearing that somebody starts applying and then they don't get it finished. And it's sort of like a lost opportunity. And it just
Yeah.
makes my heart cry, really, in a way, that they started all this work and then they didn't submit it. And that's often because there's a certain time limit. You've got to understand what else you've got on your plate at the time. There was no pun intended there. Can you manage this? And also, if it's sort of an expression of interest and then a stage 2, have a look at when the stage 2's in, because it could be in the middle of one of your clients, with food. It could be when their biggest harvest, or they're out in the sea collecting their best crayfish or whatever, So if that's a really key time for you, it's going to be hard to get that in depending on the size of your team. So that's when you might actually have to try and get some outside help. So it depends how much of this they're doing on their own. So that's number 4.
Great. Are there any more? I mean, that's great.
The last one I would say is, you probably hear it all the time with anything, but start early. So don't leave it till the last minute and think, I'll do that in the last week. It's so much better headspace to start it early and just get at least some of it done, understand what's required, put some stuff into your calendar so you know you're going to sort of get it done. And then also what you'll be wanting to achieve when you're writing a grant, if you even have to do it fast, what you want is to show the funder that you align well with the requirements of the project. It's always about, meeting the objectives of the funder. And most of these grants will probably likely be government, so either state or federal. So it's all about jobs, helping with the priorities of the government, or if it's not, if it is a philanthropic thing that you're doing and it's more in that sort of match, you look at what that is on their website. So it's alignment, value for money. So that's sort of showing that you've got a really robust budget and you are giving them great value. And you can add in value all sorts of ways. It would depend on the grant, but you've got to try and think there's competition out there and I need to be in the yes pile, so it's got to be pretty damn good. The last one is that you've got to demonstrate that they have confidence in you to deliver the project on time, on budget, to scope, all that sort of thing. So that's the 5 sort of key things.
Wow, Prue, so much gold, indigo gold, so much gold. I'm sure all of our listeners have got their pens out, and if you're driving the car, don't get your pen out right now, but listen to this a bit later. We're also going to put all of that in the show notes, so you can get access to the grants list. So tell us a little bit more about the grants list, because I think, based on what you said, the planning, the alignment, and all the other things you said, being ready, the starting point is really your own business plan, but the next stage is to go and find a grant that matches.
I've been doing this for over 10 years now, since I started the Indigo Gold, and I've been collating all the grants that are available and, some that are in the future. Normally I have everything in the list from the current time through to the next 2 or 3 months. And so I call it the general grant list, is often about 70 plus pages long. So it sounds a lot. And remember, it's got grants that are also for not just business, but philanthropic groups, charities, all those sorts of things. So when you open it, it's not all about business. It's free. It comes out every month as part of my 321 grants, which is e-news that everybody who subscribes gets. And then once a month of the 4 weeks, once a month is my grant list. And, there's just a link to click and you download it and have a look through. So it's got information about each grant. There's a link to read more from, the URL link. I have the key points, the eligibility, the amount of the grant, when it's open and closing, all those sorts of things. Just remember that some grants are open, usually for the ones most of your clients will be putting in for, will be about 4 weeks. Sometimes they're only 2. Depending what state or territory, there's usually some sort of business-related general grant. Not all states and territories do it, but most of them. So always keep a lookout for those. But then there's the specialty ones. Like at the moment, there's, a little bit about, this is food waste. So there's a lot of that sort of more recycling, upcycling, reusing things. So there could be some of those that would be relevant. And I'm sure some of your, the listeners, the watchers, would be also, there's packaging involved. So there could be some, there's manufacturing, depending what they're doing with their food, all sorts of grants with that, because government more specifically is keen about manufacturing and about making more jobs, making things easier, export. There's all the export grants, of course, but look out for things in that upcycle, recycle, use the leftover pieces that used to be discarded maybe many years ago. And probably one thing I should have said earlier in that sort of planning is maybe start to think where you're aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, because understanding where you fit in that and thinking about what your business could align with means that when you're writing your grant, you could mention that, and that could just sort of put you up above some of the others because they're not thinking along those lines. So the grant list comes out every month. It's free. It's a great resource, and I've been passionately doing that for Australia, because I like to make things easier for people.
Fantastic. One of the other things I just want to touch on is how do people get help? Like if you're busy in your business and you're wearing all the hats, applying for a grant can sometimes just seem just too hard. And certainly like everything, the more you do it, the better you get. So what other services or what other help can you through the Grant Writing Academy provide to people if they might be interested in talking to you a bit more? Yeah.
Sure, Jane. We do everything from like a 1 hour grant consult mentoring session,
Okay.
and through to helping and doing everything for them. And I'll give you an example. It can be quite simple. I had a client, she was successful with her grant. So she was on an island off the coast of Australia. She had never come across me before, but obviously heard about me. I'm not sure if she was already on the free grant list. I have a yearly program. So she joined that and then decided that she'd just have a couple of 1 hour sessions. So we only did 2 1 hour sessions. And just with that and helping her plan out what she was doing with her grant, she was in tourism but was starting a new distillery. So they already had plans for the distillery. So they were able to show that. But it allowed her to sort of bring the plans forward. So I think it was only like 4-week turnaround time. We had two 1 hour sessions. She got all her bits together, and with those 2 sessions, she was able to put in for her grant, and she got, I think it was 375,000.
Wow.
So just having a bit of a chat with someone like myself to understand how to sort of get things ready, what's important and what's not. Sometimes you can start to worry about the pieces that aren't really that important. And it was more making her budget was probably the key thing. We find generally people's, I guess, forward vision of what the grant would do for them, people really struggle with getting that right. So she worked then with her accountant quite closely to quickly get that together. But it was also, what to put in some of the answers. Questions can be, I know you've written a few grants in your time, they can be a bit confusing. And if people read them and they're thinking the question's asking the same thing, you're probably missing something. So, it's just helping with a little bit like that. And the yearly program I have where people can start to get ready could be helpful, through to even just, I have a free Facebook group where people can ask questions anytime. I must admit, getting on a call, understanding more and just exploring what needs to be done in a nice schedule. And if someone came in maybe 2 weeks before and that's all they had, you can still, like with this lady, we got something together quite fast. So, yeah.
And as you say, a lot of grants now are focused on the sort of circular economy, reducing waste. This is the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So, the listeners who are involved in food waste, This is a prime time to be really exploring all the different grant opportunities, and we do have listeners who run not non for profit, so they're going to be interested in that as well. So I guess I just want to finish. So thank you. This has been amazing. It's just a huge amount of information. So if you're a listener right now and you've got a grant idea or you'd like to like to explore grants a bit more, can you give us a little bit of an action plan? What should they be doing next?
I think they should be deciding, what's in their plan. What's in their plan for the next 2 to 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like anything with business, you do have to plan ahead. What's going to make the biggest difference? Because if you have to choose something that you're going to go for grant funding for, you need to choose the one that's all about jobs or helping government normally with a priority. So if
Yeah,
there's 3 projects and one of them is going to do that more than the others, that probably should be your focus. Others you
right,
might just have to get funding another way. But with grants, it really has to align with what the government's wanting to do. And, the more you match in with that. And now with food waste at the moment, obviously, is one of those. So if you've got
yeah,
a project and you maybe have 2 things that you create or grow, the one that puts out the most food waste maybe is the one I would choose. So think quite strategically about that. And
right,
then
yeah,
once you've got that, it's probably good then to get in touch with someone. It's a bit like getting your team together that's going to help you. And if the grant writing is the part that's missing and you need a bit of help to just get you sorted, you come out to someone like myself and you've got to decide whether you're going to do it mostly yourself or think about the whole thing being just facilitated by
right,
someone else. So you've sort of got to make those decisions ahead of time, and just do a little bit of research, see what's happening. And even if you've missed, sometimes there's rounds. Like I've just helped someone with a recycling thing. It wasn't about food, but we worked for about 4 weeks on that project, on and off. And it's about being organised and thinking, is there another round that I can put in for? Um,
great,
and
great,
one little tip I suppose I'd say is if it's something where there is rounds and you see that they're giving more money to the first round, I would probably go in with an application. Even if you're not quite ready, you can always apply the
right,
next round, right? If you miss out,
yeah,
they're not going to think, oh, they applied before and they didn't get it, so they're not worthy. That's not
right,
how the government will think. So my approach is have a go, like anything. Have a bit courageous and have a go the first time. And my passion's always to help the person get it the first time.
great.
Sometimes there isn't the information ready, but have a go and do your research, understand what you need, and it actually takes the stress out when you're doing your application. So it's all about less stress with me.
Great. I like the idea of less stress. Too much stress in the world right now. So get in the yes pile. So if people are interested in talking to you, what's the best way to do that, Prue? How can people get in contact with you?
I'm very approachable. So my email is Prue, Prue, at Indigo Gold, the 2 colours, indigogold.com.au is my email. You can send me an email, get in touch if you just want to have like a, quick 30-minute, no charge consult, just have a bit of a chat about things. Always happy to do that. Whether it's an industry group, a business, it really doesn't matter. I love helping people. That's probably the best way. And I would imagine in your show notes you'll have, the Indigo Gold is the business, is the company name. So you can just Google Indigo Gold. You'll see lots of stuff in there. A lot of the bespoke things that I do, I just create for each particular business. So I don't have everything listed on that website. And, the best way is really to have either a call and we can quickly set that up. If someone emails me,
Great,
I'll get in touch with them pretty fast, help
great.
them out. I like helping people as soon as I can.
And if they're on the socials, they can find you on Facebook and LinkedIn, I think.
Yeah,
And
you can find me on LinkedIn. So just look up Prue Saxby. On Facebook, you can have a look at Indigo Gold. And if you want to join the free Facebook group, Grant Writing Academy, and you can just request to join that. You do have to answer the admin questions. Best way for me to keep spammers out, and it works very well. I do have a membership there. So if you see Grant Writing Academy membership, don't request to join that one. It's Grant Writing Academy, because that's the free group for starters. And people can ask me very simple little questions in there once they're in there anytime. So they're the best ways. But LinkedIn's also, I put the grant list out via LinkedIn as well. So it's another way to access that.
So lots and lots of ways of getting in contact with you. As you say, I've always found you very approachable, Prue, and really helpful. So much knowledge about getting in the yes pile, which we all want to do when we go to the effort of applying for a grant. We all want to get in the yes pile. So thank you so much for coming and joining me today. And here's to a world without food waste. And here's to getting into the yes pile. Thank you.
Thanks, Jayne. It's been a pleasure.
Wow, Prue. Thank you so much. There was so much gold in there for the listeners about how to make sure that you're aligned with what the grant is, with the grant purpose, that you plan not for fitting in with the guidelines of the grant, but plan in terms of what you're trying to achieve as a business or as an organisation. And once you have that plan, identifying the 3 or 4 needs for grants, and then going and looking for grants and support that can help you do that. And as Prue mentioned, she has a free grants list. And I subscribe to that list, and let me tell you, it's packed full of every single sort of grant that you can imagine. So I would say that the first thing you need to do if you're in the market for grants is to go and sign up for Prue's grants list. It will really help you. Thank you for listening, everyone, at this week's podcast, Getting into the Yes Pile. Until next time, take care, everyone, and join the fight.